How's it guys, Munash here, and today we've got some rank 5 SIG 200 Guardian gameplay. Now this is a champ that I actually didn't expect to like as much as I do right now, but after playing with him for quite some time, and by quite some time I mean about an hour at rank 4, yeah, I took quite a liking to him pretty quickly, and then I decided to take him to SIG 200 because he's got some pretty unique utility, very nice SIG ability, and then rank 5. So yeah, at SIG 200 he gets an extra 2563 block proficiency, so if you add that to his base of 3734, it's not quite as high as Cap Infinity Wars, although it's more comparable to Cap World War II's, but basically when you parry you won't take any damage. Yeah, tech used to be my weakest class, but now it's looking pretty solid. I think I have all the tech champs as 5 stars now, or at least all the good ones. I'm just missing OG Vision. Okay, yeah, so now let's move on to the first fight, and this is actually in Cavalier difficulty. The first fight I did with him at rank 5, and this Sabretooth has kinetic transference and kinetic reactor, which means he's going to gain a lot of power whenever we parry. And this is actually quite fun for Guardian because he gains a little bit of power whenever you parry a special attack. So you get that perfect block, and then you also get a little bit of power. I think it's 10% per hit you parry. It's quite similar to Sunspot's ability. The only thing is it only works on special attacks, and it does have a cooldown timer to it. There's that little green perfect block icon after every time you parry. But yeah, basically you just want to build your special 1, and for these type of health pools you want to throw it twice because that'll build 3 force field charges, and each force field charge will increase your special 2 damage, which is where most of his damage does come from. So usually oh wow, the fight was over before I could even finish explaining. But yeah, he does have some nice burst damage with the special 2. Feels quite similar to playing Sunspot actually, just without the parry heavy part. Okay, now we're going to go up against Domino with the same nodes, kinetic reactor and kinetic transference. So one of the cool ability that Guardian has is he can parry projectiles. So those basic attacks of Dominoes that don't make contact, he can actually parry stun them. And also whenever his ability accuracy is being reduced, he applies a shock debuff on the opponent. And because now Domino's constantly reducing it throughout the fight, he's gonna have that shock honor throughout the fight. So yeah, that just helps you do a little bit more damage. But also, as you can see, because of that energy resistance, we are actually barely taking any crit fail damage. So usually I'll throw 2 special 1s for these type of health pools, and then the special 2 will generally do enough damage to take them out. And also the special 1 does apply a taunt, pretty nice for baiting special attacks. So generally you just throw the special 1, which makes it a little bit easier to actually parry the special attack to gain a bit more power, because at least you know that the opponent is more likely to throw it. So now I'm just building up to the special 2. Want to end it pretty much the same way as the last fight. So you also notice my health is close to full. I barely took any crit fail damage from that fight since it's also energy damage. But yeah, you'll see the difference it makes in those fights where you do take a lot of energy damage. An additional 8392 energy resistance at max sig is pretty high. Hyperion has the highest base energy resistance, and that's around 1100, and it's much higher than Voodoo's as well. I think only Mordo has a higher energy resistance, but that's only when he's blocking, of course. Okay, so now we're going up against Apocalypse. And also you notice that Guardian doesn't crit at all. Instead, he applies a shock passive on you. So against champs that are shock immune, his damage won't be as good. It's still just a nice piece of utility to have for those fights that punish you for landing crits. You know, like nodes like Spiked Armor, Terminal Velocity. Would have been nice for war during the flow era. So yeah, I haven't gotten the perfect timing to parrying Apocalypse's special attacks. Special 2 is a bit easier though. So yeah, once again, just want to throw 2 special 1s, then build to the special 2. And yeah, you can see he's got some very good block proficiency as well. Barely taking any damage. And then you also get critical damage resistance by up to 314, and honestly I'm not sure how big of a difference that one makes. I need to actually get hit by crits and then compare with other champs, although there's so many other factors to take in. But yeah, I see his base crit damage is 734, so what, would that cut it in half? although that's not including the cruelty masteries. So yeah, I'm not sure about that one. But anyway. Okay, so now I jumped into Act 6 Chapter 2.6. And now I'm going to test out his resistances to energy damage. So there's this Iceman, and I brought stock Enhanced Spider-Man because he was basically the closest thing to a rank 5 Guardian I could get. My other tech champs are either female or a Warlock who is immune to Cold Snap. So yeah, that Cold Snap is ticking at 565. So that's a bit of an annoying amount of Cold Snap damage, and he went down to exactly 50%. Although I did take one parry at the start of the fight. So yeah, I'm just gonna quit the fight now because I want to compare to Guardians. So yeah, let's see what 8400 energy resistance does. Then he also gets about 80% bleed resistance, which is pretty nice. I mean, it makes bleed nodes easy, it makes him a lot more suicide friendly, and allows him to do stuff like Biohazard. Okay, so now I'm actually barely taking any damage, and I only have level 1 willpower. And either way, it doesn't even last very long, so I only took about 2% damage from the Cold Snap. So yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good Iceman counter. Okay, so now let's finish him off, and I'm trying to parry Special 1. And this time I only threw one Special 1 before the Special 2 because it is Act 6 Chapter 2. The health pools are slightly less than the ones in Act 6 Chapter 3 and 4. But either way, it still took one Special 1 after that to finish him off. But yeah, pretty effective counter for that one. Now I also want to try out against Magik because Limbo is energy damage. But I think it's a little bit stronger than this Iceman's Cold Snap, and also she has increased power gain, so it's going to be triggering a lot during the fight. But first I have to get through this Blade, who does have the defensive node, which can be somewhat annoying, but at least Guardian Special 1 has Taunt, so that should really help to make things a little bit faster in getting him to throw his special attacks. So yeah, I threw the Special 1 pretty quickly, then I can just parry that. And yeah, I really wish that the window was a bit larger, or actually just there was no window and it's just the whole duration of the special animation. I think it would really make him a lot more fun. But yeah, can I at least get a Special 2? Because yeah, I could have parried the first hit of the Special 2. I would have gained about double their power that I did there. So now he's just holding block, which is the annoying part. So I actually throw a sneaky heavy attack to get an opening, and then right after that I throw the Special 2. And yeah, it does connect, and that finishes him off. Okay, now we have Magik, and I think she has Energize, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Energize 1. And Stark Spidey's been knocked out, so this time I'm gonna sacrifice Doom. At least neither will have class advantage. So I really just want to see how much damage the Limbo does. Okay, so she's gaining power pretty quickly, so yeah. So it's ticking for 750. Okay, so now I want to see if Doom can actually survive this fight, like how much damage he can do before he goes down. But I didn't quite play it perfectly, I was just playing it sort of freely. Just trying to build the Special 3. But yeah, it's a rank 3 Doom. Basically after the Special 3, you just throw one Special 2 and then they typically go down. So yeah, I guess he can do this fight, but damn, he takes a lot of damage while doing it. So yeah, 69%, and yeah, that's special 2 with the Incinerate. I'm just gonna quit here, because I still need to test out Guardian, so yeah, let's give them both 50% to do, more or less. So now it's ticking for only 150. Okay, that's pretty decent. I mean, she's only at half health, but this is an increased power gain Magik, so I guess it's also a pretty solid Magik counter. I mean, you still do take a bit of damage, but it's not that bad. You can get through a few Magiks without reviving or healing up. So yeah, it's really cool that the ability is just tied to energy resistance in general, not some specific damage over time effect. So it works on Cold Snap, Incinerate, Shock, and it's not just debuffs, it's also passive effects. And it's always there. Well, not always, as long as you have the armor buff. But you do start with it and you do get all the benefits at the same time. You know, you don't have to switch stances or modes or anything like that. In a typical fight, the only time you lose the armor buff is when you throw a special 2. And you can also throw a heavier attack to use up 1 charge to get it back, or just wait for 14 seconds. Okay, now moving on to Act 6 Chapter 3.1. This is the Biohazard lane. I also wanted to test out his bleed resistance and compare it to other champs. So first we go in with our guinea pig, Stark Spidey. And she does have that force field, so that will give exhaustions, which will trigger willpower, but I'm just looking at the bleed damage. And right now it's ticking for 489, which is quite substantial. You definitely wouldn't survive a full fight. I mean, unless I get super lucky and utilize Pacify, then maybe. But yeah, not really ideal. Okay, now it's 293. I'm not sure why it changed. Does it have something to do with the force field or the damage, or is it because she had the taunt and then the taunt lowers your attack as well? That actually might be why. Okay, but yeah, now let's just try out Guardian. He has 79.98, and I don't know why Kabam likes these decimals. I mean, why not just make it 80? Okay, so let's wear out the invisibility. Okay, and the bleed is only doing 98 damage. So yeah, it's slightly more than my level 1 willpower, but still pretty good. If I had higher willpower or coagulate, then I'm sure I'd be gaining more health. Okay, but yeah, let's see if we can actually handle taking multiple bleeds. But still, this is Invisible Woman, so you gain other debuffs that just help you heal even more. But yeah, I mean, I barely took that much damage with level 1 willpower, so I think if you play it right, you can actually do Biohazard lanes. Okay, then I accidentally hit a block, forgetting about the poison part. Okay, so now I'm just trying to remove that force field. And then I'm gonna bait out the invisibility, and then remove that before I throw a special 2. Only problem with this fight is there is also clapback, so I'm gonna be taking back any shock damage I apply. But now you can also see the shock resistance in action, because that shock was ticking for about 5,700, and for me it's only about 489. And let's also compare with Magneto, who lowers bleed potency by 90%. So yeah, obviously champs like Magneto or Omega or just straight up bleed immune would generally be better for Biohazard or any type of bleed node. But I think it's quite cool that Guardian can also do bleed and all these other effects like shock, incinerate, etc. Okay, and now we're gonna move on to Act 6 Chapter 4.4, where there's this Electro who has the shock node. Basically, it applies a small shock on you when you make contact, unless the opponent is under a poison. So yeah, Guardian's resistances also works on Electro shock, since it's also energy damage. So you notice that he actually barely takes damage from Electro when he makes contact with them. But first we're gonna just watch Stark Spidey sort of kill himself. I mean, obviously it's not a good counter for this fight. No, he just can't handle the damage reflection. But Guardian can, and also the shock damage gets reduced as well, which also just helps to heal with willpower. So on stock Spidey, the shocks were doing about 26 per tick. And now on Guardian, they're only doing 5. So yeah, you can take a lot of those and still gain more health. And you can see that we're actually barely taking any damage from Electro. Just a screenshot where I did 905 damage and only took back 69. Whereas stock Spidey did 1252 and took back 467. So yeah, pretty big difference. So here's a pretty good Electro counter as well, though just not good for this Electro because the energy adoption node will basically heal him 1% whenever he gets a shock on him until that shock expires. And also there's Do Not Go Gentle, which just makes finishing the fight a bit more complicated. So now for the last one, I went up against the Scarlet Witch in Act 6 Chapter 3.6. And this is the EMP modification path. So whenever the opponent throws a special attack, you're gonna get a passive shock on you for each buff you triggered since the last special attack. So generally a pretty annoying node if you don't have someone with very good power control or some form of passive shock immunity. But yeah, just due to Guardian's resistance, you actually won't be taking that much damage from the shock passives. So one is only doing 17 damage. And the other thing about Guardian is his playstyle with the perfect block on parrying special attacks. It actually allows you to trigger less buffs in this fight, or to dex a lot less in this fight. Because I can just parry your special attacks and take no damage. And Guardian also works pretty well for Scarlet Witch because he doesn't crit, so she won't actually trigger any of those abilities like Power Drain, Heal Block, or Poison on you. So yeah, I really do like this champ, although I do need to get better at parrying special attacks, but I generally do like that playstyle of being rewarded for doing it. And he's got a very unique set of utility with all his resistances, not being able to crit, the permanent armor buff, the shock damage, and I didn't even speak about the special 3 because I think it's more used for longer fights because it gives you 6 of those charges and they are indefinite, so you can stack a lot of them before throwing a massive special 2. Maybe I'll make a video on that next time, but yeah, for stuff like Act 6 and Alliance War type health pools, generally it's just special 1 and then special 2. So the armor makes him a good havoc counter, not being able to crit makes him a sinister counter, and all those other nodes that I mentioned earlier. He can parry stun projectiles, and also I forgot to mention that he can actually power drain as well. By ending a combo with your light attack, you will consume 2 force field charges and then you will drain 20% of the opponent's power. So it's not a great or consistent form of power control, but it can be quite useful for certain scenarios. I guess it's more for emergencies, kind of like stock Spidey's heavy attack. So yeah, I'm still fairly new to this champ and exploring what he can do, but so far I'm quite liking what he has to offer. He's got all these bits of utility and some solid damage, and he doesn't rely on synergies to do all these cool things. He does have a few unique synergies which make him a little bit better, but I think the best one he has is the one with himself, because it gives everyone else on your team plus 1000 block proficiency. Actually it scales based on the star level, so for a 6 star it's 1250, for a 4 star it's 750. And the difference is noticeable. All those squishy champs with the block proficiency of a 5-year-old can actually take significantly more parry damage now. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.